Grief is a thin place, a place so thin it's hard to tell where earth ends and heaven begins. Grief is a place so thin that it's where the living and the dead feel one another's love. I'm Lisa Hamilton, an Episcopal priest, and I grieve. First, I'll read some scripture that many Christians use in worship during Lent. Then I'll struggle with those words through the lens of grief. I'm glad you've joined me. Today's scripture is from Wisdom, chapter 2. They reasoned unsoundly, saying to themselves, "Short and sorrowful is our life. God created us for incorruption and made us in the image of his own eternity, but through the devil's envy, death entered the world, and those who belong to his company experience it." There's nothing quite like addiction to make a life short and sorrowful. As my son Ted said toward the end of his life at age 27, when he was finally able to look back on his drug abuse, there is nothing in the druggy life to commend it. One of the reasons he's right is that even after someone is able to stop using or abusing, the effects linger. Not just strained relationships and legal obligations and lost jobs, but physically. It's not unusual for people who have used opioids to be left with lingering nerve pain. For Ted, the pain continued for 2 years. It's not unusual to treat that lingering pain as Ted did with large amounts of Imodium. And Imodium is what caused the death of my son. Engaged for a night, with plans to return to college and become a therapist. Ted was the kindest person I've ever known. He died full of potential, ready to use his compassion, his creativity, his humor, his intelligence, his own wounds in the service of others. I'm sad and mad that Ted didn't get to love the world by caring for people as a therapist. But I'm also grateful that Ted's love has overflowed into people who care for me. I've written a sort of letter to you all. I recently watched a meteor shower, glad for my standard poodle Zelda's bouncy company, as I hope Ted and his dad Scott watched from another view. Each spark, I realized, I can attach to a kindness. My godchildren and others of Teddy's friends who have adopted me. Flowers and even trees. Friendships new and renewed and deepened. Prayer shawls. Donations in Ted's name to the Appalachian Trail he planned to continue hiking. Donations as well to his high school to start a scholarship for sons of clergy like him. The safe places that include the UPS store and the funeral home where I've ordered mementos like the necklace with his thumbprint on it that I'm wearing around my neck right now. Or my hair salon where I'm welcome whatever my mood. Space you've given me. Company you've given me. The community that carried me through doctoral work the first summer without Ted. My husband's patience. The clergy to whose pastoral care I can only aspire. The awesome compassion of nurses in the deep night and daytime too. The EMTs whose names I do not know. I weep every day to Ted and to St. Francis and to Scott and to Jesus and Mary and my own mother and so many on the other side. But along with the water and the salt, my tears are filled with gratitude for each person who shows me kindness, and I thank them from the bottom of my broken heart. From eternity from earth, from friends and family, I have been the recipient of kindness upon kindness. Words written and spoken, and gifts and visits. And that Sunday morning, my high school friends concluded our 40th reunion by making Scott's and Ted's graves into a garden. The Wednesday morning of Ted's funeral, with lunch after, made by friends of my mother, who adored her only grandson. The Saturday of lunch with Ted's friends, and the visit to the organ donor memorial after, where a college friend of mine and a college friend of Ted's came. Patient listening on the phone, in cyberspace, in person. Shared tears, shared meals, even on Ted's birthday. Photographs, lack of judgment. The friends who got me to Indianapolis from the Cuba trip I was on when the awful phone call came that Ted was at St. Francis Hospital in Indianapolis. No brain activity. The candles you started lighting to help Ted find his way home to his dad, and the candles you still light from time to time. The St. Francis statue from our neighbors. Zelda drinks water from it every day. Zelda, the standard poodle puppy, whose Z name is in honor of Ted's Zippet Edward Doodah, the Cairn Terrier who died of old age a few weeks before Ted, and whose ashes are with his boys. All a tribute to Ted, the kindest person I've ever known, and his dad, the most generous person I've ever known. Being present in my grief is kindness colored with generosity. And so I keep breathing, even when I do not want to. Kindness goads me, shadows me, leads me. Kindness keeps me breathing. Like today's scripture says, we who grieve belong to the company of God, for grief brings us close to the image of God's eternity. And I would add, to God's own kindness. Grief is a thin place.